Welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Yellow Rose Canyon, your premier event space and campground nestled in the piney woods of East Texas. With cabins and RV sites available, Yellow Rose Canyon is perfect for your next event, no matter the size. A wedding, reunion, festival, you name it. Check it all out at yellowrosecanyon.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of What in the Duck podcast. I am your host, Oliver Peck, as always. And so far anyway. I'm here in the booth and happy to announce that today's guest is Cindy Burmeister from Tattoo Faction in Cleveland, Ohio. Cindy has been tattooing longer than most of you have been alive. She's been tattooing a really long time. We're going to talk all about Cindy's tattoo history. And this episode, her interview was recorded in her station at Tattoo Faction in Ohio. And now I'm back in the booth recording the intro. This episode was recorded just a little bit a while ago. And this was an episode I was really excited to do because Cindy does have a very interesting take on the tattoo industry, being a tattoo woman who started such a long time ago, longer than me. And she has a pretty good perspective on the drastic scope of changes the tattoo industry's gone under in the last 30, 40 years. And she's just a cute, fun, badass fucking girl. So stick around and hear what Cindy has to say. Hot Cindy, they call her. Back in the day, she was known as Hot Cindy. So stick around for Hot Cindy. Right now, I've got a couple of questions from the Gmail. If you want to ask me any questions, you can email them over to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. If I do answer your question on the show, we will be sending you some cool, free shit from What in the Duck Podcast. And also remember, like, share, subscribe, and join the podcast. You can do all the things. Tell your friends. You heard it all here at What in the Duck. First question from Lila. I think it's Lila. Or we're going to say it's Lila. Or, yeah, that's what we're going to say. Says, hello, Oliver, loving the podcast. I have a tattoo folklore question for you. I heard from my main tattoo artist that rotary machines hurt more than the traditional coil machines. Is this true? I know your thoughts about dildos, and I'm genuinely curious. Also, she says, I'm heavily tattooed now, and when I started getting tattooed at 18 to 20 years ago, most artists were using coil machines. One thing for sure, though, tattoos hurt more the older I get. Light and love, Lila. Yes, you're correct. The older you get, the more it hurts. I've said this a million times, but tattoos hurt no matter what. But when you're already in pain, any more pain is going to be worse. So, for instance, like when it hurts to wake up, like it does when you're 54 like me, just waking up hurts. Obviously, getting a tattoo is going to hurt more. So the older you get, the more it hurts. The question being, do rotary machines hurt more than traditional coil machines? The answer is yes. They hurt more in many ways. Not only do they hurt your skin, but they hurt your soul. They hurt your pride. They hurt your sense of dignity, knowing that that's how you received a tattoo. That's why my advice to most people is, if you have never been tattooed by a dildo, don't start now. And if you have, you should stop. This is only one man's opinion. This is just my personal opinion. Obviously, you can do whatever you want to do with your life. And I will say also, I believe you can get a good tattoo by any means. But tattoos are supposed to be cool. And dildos are not cool. So you're kind of defeating the purpose. But yeah, I have heard that it hurts more, and I've heard that certain aspects of it hurt less. But I do know that a lot of the dildo tattoos take a lot longer to do. Therefore, the amount of pain is stretched out over a longer amount of time. I tattoo really quick. Most people call me Painless Peck. People that have been heavily tattooed by other people, because I do get it done quick. I do get it done efficiently. And obviously, it's going to hurt, but it hurts for a less amount of time. And I mean, that's pretty much it. But just the idea of how much it would just hurt my pride if I got tattooed by a dildo, I just couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. That pain is more than I'm willing to withstand. So, no. Like Nancy Reagan, just say no. All right. This question is from Brian Vogel. He sent this at 11:30 a.m. And he says, "Good morning. 11:30 a.m. Damn near noon." He says, "Good morning." That's how he starts it off. I don't know why I look at the time that the email was sent, but it just said good morning. It's obviously not morning right now. Maybe when you're listening right now, it's good morning. So good morning, everybody, from Brian Vogel. He says, "My name is Brian Vogel, and I'm an old fan of the historical value of tattoo history." Obviously not a dildo fan. And also a big fan of your work, considering that the majority of my work is American traditional. My question is this. It seems that an artist's book of work, sometimes there is a single piece that is associated with that artist and their career, like Cap Coleman's Dragon or Sailor Jerry's Hula Girl. Do you have a design or tattoo in your book of work that decades from now people will associate with you? Well, kind of. I think as far as style goes, there's definitely a certain couple of things that I do with a certain twist that people recognize that I do it. My favorite tattoo design is a skull and snake. I've done very, very, very many of them, and I definitely do them a certain way. And, I basically took a traditional, snake head off of a Sailor Jerry design and put my own special. I don't know if it seems special. I just did it my own little way or whatever, and that's just how I do snake head. So it kind of is recognizable. For the most part, I also do roses a very particular way that are like a cross between a very simple Mike Malone rose cross with what Scott Sylvia taught me how to do a rose. It's like a little intermediary blend between those two, which is also kind of recognizable. I feel like this question would be better answered by someone else looking at my work from an objective point of view. I would like to know what some of my peers or coworkers would say about this question. But I think nowadays every design, like you mentioned the Cap Coleman Dragon, that's the most popular thing from Coleman, and a lot of people refer to it. I want to get a Coleman style dragon. I think nowadays it's not so much about a particular design as it is just about a certain a style. And I don't know if that. Yeah, I guess that's how I'd put it. It's more just about it has a certain style. I can look at a tattoo and tell that Jacob Young did it. The people I work with, or the people that I travel with, or people I know. Like I can look at a tattoo and know that Greg did it. Talking about Greg Christian, I can look at a tattoo and know that Scott Sylvia did it. People look at tattoos all the time and say, "Oh, Oliver did it," and I do notice this. So it happens a lot, but I would say happens all the time, but people come in the shop that I've tattooed, and someone else at the shop, when they come in, they'll look at their arm and be like, "Oh, Oliver did that tattoo." And they're like, "Oh, you can tell?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, we can tell." You know what I mean? I can tell if Lindsay did it. I can tell if Carlos did it. It's just kind of a thing. Like a lot of times, the customer is surprised at the fact that we can look at a tattoo and guess who did it. You know, when you're familiar with somebody's work, it's a lot about the way things are done and the style that really have little telltale signs. So I definitely have had experience with people recognizing my tattoos from the style. And obviously if it's a snake, they recognize that it's the snakehead that I do. And so on. So I guess that's the answer. And he also says, thanks again for your contribution to our community. Well, I appreciate that. I do try to be very tat community minded. And although I have been very adversarial with people about using this dildo machine, I do want to be, what's the word? I do want to be more inclusionary with everybody. And I do think that the time of old tattoo conventions where everybody was all there to be a part of the same community was a pretty great time. And I do want everybody to get back to that. So that's my message of positivity for today. Thank you so much, Brian, for your question. And both these questions were tattoo related, which is pretty cool because this episode has got some really cool tat shit. We talk. Hot Cindy's got a lot of cool shit to talk about. And if you're not familiar with Cindy Burmeister, her and Greg, Christian, they are married. They own Tattoo Faction together it's actually right outside of Cleveland. And it's called North Olmsted. That's what it's called, North Olmsted, Ohio. But it's basically Cleveland. It's like a suburb of Cleveland. It's a really cool shop. I go there all the time. I'll be going there again next month. Check it out and check out Cindy's work and stick around. Listen to what Cindy's got to say. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Dream Machines of Texas. All of your used motorcycle wants and needs all in one place at dreammachinesoftexas.com. They have multiple locations, large inventory, and get new bikes in every week. Knowledgeable staff with great service, financing and extended warranty options available. They also have a complete service garage, so every bike is gone through and brought up to speed before you hit the road. I've bought more than a few bikes from Dream Machines over the years, and I could not be more satisfied. I have also had friends from all over the country buy bikes because they couldn't find a better deal anywhere. You can buy a bike and have it shipped to you anywhere in the U.S. Why buy a brand new bike with that brand new high price when you can get a like new bike with that dream deal you've been looking for? Go to dreammachinesoftexas.com and get a bike and get your ass on the road. All right, welcome to another episode of What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck, and today I am here with Cindy Burmeister in her station at Tattoo Faction in Cleveland, Ohio, right outside Cleveland, Ohio, actually in a town called North Olmsted.
Yep.
Great tattoo shop. You're seeing a little bit of it here. Cindy has been tattooing longer than most people I know. Very happy to have you here. Thank you for letting me set up in your station.
Thank you.
This shop has just such great... We're going to show some footage from around the shop. It's one of the most beautiful laid out shops that I go to work at in the country. And it's one of those places. It's a magic place.
It's our home away from home.
Next year, 20 years of Tattoo Faction.
Yes.
But that's just a drop in the bucket to how long you've been tattooing.
45 years this month.
This month
Yeah.
marks 45 years of tattooing. That is...
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I'm the old lady.
The old lady. Well, we're going to start off just with a little bit of a beginning of how you got into tattooing. I know there's a lot of talk right now in the tattoo industry about how much tattooing has changed. And most of these people having this conversation have been tattooing 10, 15, or 20 years.
Right.
These people have no idea how much tattooing has changed in 30, 40, 50 years. You tattooed directly with people that started tattooing 60 years ago,
Yes.
or longer, which is, we'll get into a lot of specifics about how crazy tattooing was and how normal tattooing has become. But so you started off, I don't know if you want to talk about how old of a lady you are, but 45 years, people are getting the image. You didn't start tattooing at 2 years old. So
No.
we know
I'm 63. I'm proud.
63 and proud, and you're kicking ass. You're doing more work than a lot of young people do.
Well,
Very impressive.
I'm trying to keep up.
Very impressive. Well, how did you get into tattooing in the first place that long ago as a young girl?
Well, I grew up in Miami, and I met a guy, and he moved to Colorado, so I chased him. And I got a job, and the two guys that I was working with were going to go get a tattoo. I did not grow up around tattoos. Nobody in my family had tattoos, not even my dad or my grandfather, who were both in military. And I had only seen one tattoo probably in my entire growing up, was on the lady I babysat for. So they were going to get a tattoo. I was like, take me with you. I want to get a tattoo. And I wasn't even 18 yet. I was just going to be 18. And at the time,
Little Cindy running around the country at 17 years old.
So they took me to get my tattoo. Also scared the crap out of me before I went. So I was so nervous. And when I got it, I got a little rose on my hip. I was like, wow, this is nothing. I think I like these things, And I hit it off with the girl who tattooed me, which was Barbara Chapman. It was at Peter Tattoo Studio on Broadway, downtown Denver, which was way smaller than Denver is now.
But we also have to footnote that Peter Tattoo is like one of the prominent nationwide famous tattooers.
Yes, he was.
You didn't just walk into a random place. You
No.
walked into a place of lineage.
Yes.
By chance.
By chance.
Yes.
For sure. I had no clue. And we hit it off, and I was super fascinated at how it was done. She also had a daughter, and she needed a babysitter, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I needed cheap tattoos. So it was kind of a trade. So I hung out at the tattoo shop when I wasn't working. And I think I was there enough that I wasn't looking for a job. They just asked me, did I want to try it? And I said, sure. And I had a little bit of a talent that I didn't know I had. I was always into art, but never went to art school. So I gave it a shot. I apprenticed for 3 months at Peter's shop where he worked on Colfax. And then there's a shop that they would put the new people, which was called American Tattoo. And Bill Hanning ran that shop. And so I went to work there after apprenticing for 3 months. I got lucky. I was dating a guy who was from New York, and all his buddies were there going to Denver Diesel and Automotive College. So I had all these guys, free tattoos. They had no money. So I practiced on them every day. And then Peter told me I had to start charging them $12 to pay for the ink because I was tattooing so much. And then I went to work at American, and I was there for a few years, and I actually moved to New York for a hot second. I was held up at gunpoint at my part-time job, and we just kind of ran away for a minute. And then Barbara called me and said, hey, we need you back here. So I came back, and then I worked until Peter passed away.
Which was about?
Oh, that was 84. Whatever the date is. It was 83 or 84. I always get my dates wrong. But, and then I worked for his wife for a hot minute, and then I moved to New York. And I worked for his partner, Larry Romano.
To the big city.
Well, it was Long Island. So when I moved to New York, tattooing was illegal in the 5 boroughs. So you could only get tattooed on Long Island or upstate New York, which was good for us. Obviously, there were underground studios. The one that I knew the most of was Jonathan Shaw. I was a very non-informative tattooer for the first probably 10 years. I didn't know a lot of people outside of Peter Tattoo. Peter Tattoo was my life. That's all I knew were the people who worked there. I knew of a few other people once I started going to the National Tattoo Association conventions. And now when I look at you guys and all the tattooers, but there weren't that many tattooers either. So for me, I just felt very sheltered.
But once you got into national, you realized that most of these tattooers in the country all knew of each other at least.
Yes.
And there was a lot of correspondence in the early years of tattooers sharing things and and kind of starting what is now like a mass scale community.
Yes, but you also didn't have social media, so there was no cell phones. So you were writing letters or corresponding on the telephone. Or you met at National once a year. I didn't know also too, never really heard of guest spotting at another shop. I don't think that was a big thing back then. I don't ever remember us having guest artists at our shops. There were 5 shops in Colorado, 5 in New York, and I think 4 in Arizona. And I never went to another shop and worked.
Yeah. Well, the one thing about all this correspondence is back then people were writing letters.
Yes.
And a lot of people have copies of those letters. And a lot of these letters have been published in books. So you can go back and do your own research and read these letters and see what people were sharing and see what people were talking about and see how, what the kinship of tattooing like really started. And I think all that started late 70s, early 80s when people started. I can't remember what year National started.
I believe it was 79.
So late
78 or 79. And Peter was a big part of helping put those shows on. His crew, worked the doors or, they had huge amounts of people entering contests. So when I started, I was an escort. We escorted the people on stage, told them, move from X to X so people could take photographs or whatever. And I remember one convention, I think it was in California, and this was early years in the 80s. There was like 150 contestants in one group.
Because people really had to go somewhere and show up and see tattoos in person. There wasn't tattoo magazines. It wasn't until right around that same time that Easy Rider started putting tattoos in the magazine. But it was like if you wanted to see what new tattoos were happening, you went to the convention. You went the contests were the biggest part,
right?
Because that's where everybody could see what everybody's doing.
Yeah, and they were packed.
Stuff.
They were packed all for a long, long time. And then obviously, as the years went on, there were other conventions. I'm sure there were a few conventions when National was going on. I think overseas there were some, but I had never heard of them. I barely even started reading the tattoo magazines when they first started coming out. But National was a big part of my life. I became a member and went to the conventions every year. And that's where I met most of the people that I knew in tattooing. I didn't really venture out of the shop or the conventions. I didn't go anywhere else.
When I started tattooing and I knew what National was, one of the most exciting things about when I started learning from Richard was that I got to availability to National through Richard and then ended up joining. And it was that was a big deal. That was the only way you could get in to getting supplies and getting stuff and knowing things and sharing, and it was now everything is rampantly available on the internet.
Well, when we first started ordering from National, when I was living in New York, they were out of their house.
Yeah.
I used to drive to their house, sit in the living room and wait for them to pack up our order. And then I would bring it back to the shop. I think I was playing with some of the kids that are now, older and have their own kids, but they were little, and I would just hang out at the house and wait for my order to get packed up, and then they went huge and got the place in PA, and, it just got bigger and bigger. But it originally started out of their house.
Yeah, it wasn't until 92 that I was able to even order anything from there.
Okay, yeah. Well, and it was all, if we ordered ink, it was powder. Peter had a recipe. I still don't know it. Angelo claims he has it. So, but I remember him mixing the ink in the back room and just a mess everywhere because it was all powdered. It wasn't pre-dispersed.
Yeah, we were talking the other night about how far that little bit of powder would go.
Yeah.
You would get just a little, you'd spill a little bit,
And it's everywhere.
The whole room would
Yeah.
be red in a second.
Yeah. One of the dogs. So every shop in Colorado had a Doberman, and they were shop dogs. And Sheriff got into a pound of greening. And he was a red Dobie, and he was green for quite a while. And there was green. I mean, you pulled a book off the shelf. There was just green everywhere for years.
It just floats like, it's the finest powder.
Oh, yeah.
It just floats like mist.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yes.
One of the things you said earlier about you got to start charging people because the ink. And the ink was so valuable, not just because it cost money. The ink was so valuable because of the time and the mess and the work it took to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, buying the ink was the easy part.
Yep.
If you could get availability to it. But knowing the ingredients and having all the blenders and having a room that you could just, I mean, it's like you have to have like a bomb shelter room to go in there and just contain it.
And we didn't have one of those. So it was just the back room, and the back room, if you touched anything, you always had something on your hands, but that's the space that we had to do it in. Or that he had to do it in. I don't even think I ever saw him mixing it. I just saw the mess every time I came in. But
you started tattooing then with these rough characters. Tattooing was a rough sport.
Yeah,
for sure. And people complain nowadays about being a young girl and how hard it is to get in these environments and become a tattooer. I mean, it is very tame.
Oh, compared
the
to
90s and 2000s are very tame compared to the 70s.
Yeah.
I promise you.
When I started tattooing, it was a man's world. I mean, there was Barbara, there was Kim, there were a few female tattooers, but it was still a man's world, because if I put a note in the bathroom and probably didn't put a nice note about how shitty you left the bathroom after I just cleaned it, and then they took the note to Peter would call me and I would come down. He's like, you can't do stuff like that. I'm like, but I spent all day cleaning the bathroom, and they just go in there and make a huge mess. But I did what I had to do. I have a mouth. So I spoke up. Then I learned I had to kind of not speak up. I just did what I had to do.
But you got to have a tough skin.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have to, fight for your place.
No.
To earn what you get.
Well, no, and that's what I had to do to get where I am now. I went through a lot to get this far in that environment. I never felt unsafe. I just felt like I actually, when I first started working there, I cried a little bit. I cried a lot sometimes. I actually went home, and my boyfriend at the time had sold a gun that he just bought to buy my equipment. And I told him I wanted to quit because, and it was Barbara. She would come and look at my tattoos and just break them down right in front of the person I just tattooed. And I would go home crying every day. I was like, I don't think I can do this. And then I moved to New York for about 6 months, and I came back, I don't know what, a different person. And I just toughened up, and I just did what I had to do, because I decided this is what I wanted to do, and I was going to do it, and I was going to do whatever I had to do to stay here.
And so you were only in New York a short time.
I moved upstate New York. I wasn't even tattooing. I became a waitress at this country inn up there, and the owner, he was Italian. His name was Conti, and he would just call me Tattoo. He didn't even know my real name. He just called me I said, do you even know my name? He's like, no.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I worked there for 6 months. Barbara called me. She's like, we really need you. Are you going to come back? I said, yeah, I'm coming back. So I went back and was working full time. I worked 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 6 days a week. And then they decided they were going to start opening on Sundays. I was like, I am not working on Sundays, but I had to work every other Sunday. So I worked 7 days a week, every other week for a good 5 years.
And then what kind of wound down the end of that?
After Peter passed, it just wasn't the same. Diane she lost it. She didn't know what to do. and everything was just going downhill. And at that time still, I didn't know other tattooers in other places. The only tattoo place I knew was, let's call Larry, see if I can get a job in New York. So I called him and told him that I couldn't work here anymore. Could I come to New York? And he said yes. And I got off the exit, and I got off at the wrong exit, and I was not in a very nice neighborhood. And I thought, oh God, what did I make a mistake? But he hooked me up with a place to live when I moved there. And that place was a room at a Hells Angels. He was the vice president of the New York Hells Angels. And I rented a room from his house. I wasn't allowed to bring anybody there, tell anybody where I lived. And I thought, oh my gosh, okay. And I think at this point I was like 24, 25. And so I was going to work with Marguerite, and Marguerite was a big thing. And at this time, single needle was huge. So now I had to figure out how to work this tiny little fine line thing so I could keep up with her. But I fell into the groove, and because it wasn't legal in the 5 boroughs, we were busy all the time.
Yeah.
People coming from Queens, the Bronx. I mean, we would be locking up at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and someone would pull up and offer to pay us extra money because they drove all this way. I'm like, Queens is 20 minutes. We're right here.
It's far in New York.
Yeah.
You got to cross how many bridges?
Yeah. Yeah, to make us open the door back up. But I'd be like, can't. I've been here all day. But if you were there and it was 10 to 11 and a $400 dragon walked in and it was going to take you 3 hours and Larry was at the shop, you were doing that tattoo. So you were staying there. And we worked hard. I mean, Marguerite would be booked up 6 months in advance and I would get her overflow. So after I had been there a few years, I was booked up 3 months in advance. So it was, and there was no Google. We had books. And,
a lot of books.
A lot of books, a lot of reference. People would bring me books with stuff that they wanted to get, and then they would give me the book. So I had lots of reference books.
But these are not tattoo books.
No.
These are art books, photo books, journal books.
Boris Vallejo, Frazetta. Those two were really big back
Nowadays,
then.
all the tattooers have reference books that are just tattoo reference books.
Right.
It's all these tattoo designs.
Yeah, no, these were just regular books.
You had to make the tattoo design off of real photos, out of real paintings, out of real this.
Yes. You were doing a tiger. You were looking in a tiger book of real tigers, and so I would go home and draw till 3 or 4 because I'm not an amazing artist. I feel like I'm a good tattooer. I learned the skin. I figured that part out, and I learned more of the art after. So it would take me, and it still takes me a while to put something together. And so I would go home and draw for the next day. And that was a repeat every day.
Well, I think one of the downfalls of the modern tattoo reference is that everyone is getting these tattoo reference books. So you see the same tiger head.
A lot.
All over the world. Everybody's doing the same tiger head. And when people come in to get a tiger head, they bring a photo of a tattoo of a tiger head. And back then, everybody did a tiger head a little different because they drew it their way from a real tiger.
Right.
And so you would see how Pinky Young drew tigers, and you'd see how, the old Owen Jensens would draw tigers, like real folky or whatever. And you see all these different spectrums of ways that you can interpret real life.
Right.
And nowadays people are just putting their tiny spin on this already drawn image.
Tiger head that circles around.
One of the things I do is when somebody wants something, I try to look at because I draw a lot of stuff right off from scratch. Instead of looking at a tattoo design, I look at the real thing and just try to give somebody something that they're not.
I also try to reiterate that to my clients. Don't bring me a picture of somebody else's tattoo.
If you want a flower, bring a photo of the flower.
Exactly. Yeah. There, you can, whatever it is that you want, there are pictures of the real thing. It doesn't have to be somebody's tattoo. And it's always a shitty tattoo that they bring me. I'm like, do you really think this looks good? No.
Well, I would say the exception is there's these classic designs that everybody wants, like the classic you know, whether it's the cowboy skull or, you know, something
Right.
that's a very classic drawn image, and I get that. I like doing those traditional images that have the same feel. Sometimes people say, "Oh, make it weird, or make it your style, or make it this, or I really want it more like this." But, you know, I think we're getting too far down the road of everybody just throwing things on the Xerox machine and just the copier and just making the carbon copy of the same thing over and over.
Right, right. I do. Obviously, you have some people who want what they bring in exactly like it is. So I just do it. But I've moved on to doing floral stuff. I don't want to do anything else but flowers.
Well, now that's what people want from you. People see your tattoos and they're like, I want a tattoo like that. Well, Cindy's the girl, you know? And that's the years of you. What you put out is what you get back.
Right.
You know, if you put a bunch of tribal in your portfolio, people are going to want tribal.
Right. Well, and I was a walk-in tattooer for my entire life. So I had to figure out how to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And, you know, and then you get to a point when you've been tattooing for so long. And not that I ever wanted to be, you know, there's a lot of tattooers out there that specifically just only do this. I always wanted to be able to do whatever somebody wanted when they came in, but then I think I got old.
I would say that most people that I know, most tattooers I know that only do one thing, slowly graduated to that one thing.
Right.
Like they used to do
everything.
And then they slowly started doing more Japanese. And then they finally, at one point, they're like,
that's all.
My portfolio is all Japanese now.
Right.
You know, everybody I know that has a thick portfolio of like only Japanese tattoos, you go back 20 years, they were doing whatever.
Well, and I think we had to because there was such a variety of tattoos. And if you were, you know, you had to make a living. If nobody was getting just that, what were you going to tattoo?
Yeah. Well, the point I make to young tattooers is you shouldn't look at Mike Rubenall that only does what he does and then say, I want to only do what he does.
Right.
Because you need to follow the same path.
He didn't just do that when he first started tattooing.
You need to do this.
I was around when he apprenticed.
And you need to follow the same path he followed where he's tattooed and figured out what he was good at.
Right.
You know, and you slowly learn and you slowly get better and everyone has their things.
Right.
You know, and if you pick what you want to be good at from the start, you're never going to know what you missed out on because you could have been better at something else. And, you know.
And I feel like that's what happened to me. I feel like I just enjoyed doing flowers and I figured out how to do them different ways and I like doing them. And then I get bummed when it's something I don't want to do anymore and I don't feel like I'm doing the best tattoo that I can do. Obviously, when you've been tattooing this long and you're getting older, I've had carpal tunnel surgery. My hands don't work like they did 25 years ago. So I had to find something that I felt comfortable tattooing and I enjoy doing. So I'm going to do the best job that I can do. And I feel like that's how I evolved into, all right, I think I just want to do this.
And flowers,
and they're fun.
They arguably might be the most commonly tattooed item. Because you get a skull with flowers, a snake with flowers.
Right.
Flowers with flowers.
Right, yeah. And I'm okay if you add something else with those flowers, but there's flowers in there. That's what I told my client the other day. We were talking and she asked me, well, what do you really like to tattoo? I said, flowers. And I said, you got flowers in yours. You have something else in there too, but I like flowers.
Yeah.
So, and I do a lot of cover-ups and I find that flowers are one of the easiest things to cover up.
Organic shapes that you can, it doesn't have to stick to a exact parameter.
Right.
You know, somebody wants something like a very distinct image. I mean, people come in with a cover up and they're like, I want a girl head. I'm like, worst thing.
Yeah, exactly. And because they don't understand how cover ups work. So you have to explain that to them. And the floral work for me, especially for somebody who has a small tattoo and doesn't really want a big tattoo, because generally a cover up is 2 to 3 times the size of what you're covering in order to make it work so that you can pull that shading and coloring out off of it and you don't have a heavy dark area. Flowers are a little bit easier to stick around that same size I've found out. And I do a lot of cover up on women who've got, old tramp stamps or old tribal pieces, stuff they don't want anymore. And it's a dark tattoo, and I feel like the flowers are easy. You get a lot of leaves in there, you can make it work. And make it work to where you look at it and you're not going, whoa, what was underneath there? Because I've seen a lot of really bad cover-ups where I'm like, how did that person think that was going to cover that tattoo up? Okay.
So many.
Yeah.
So many bad cover-ups. So you were originally from Florida.
Originally from Miami, Florida.
And so you ended up making your way back.
I did. I went to Colorado for 6 years, New York for 8 years, and I was done with New York. I just had enough of New York. And I went back.
Were you in New York during the transition that it became legal, or you left before?
I left right before. I left what I call the perfect time. Because
the floodgates open.
Yeah. I mean, there was a shop on every corner. I mean, obviously, most of them closed. They didn't last. But yes, I did go back for a hot minute and went, whoa, there's tattoo shops everywhere. But yes, I went back. I went back to Miami, and I took a little bit of a breather. I knew Lou was there, and I had met Lou a couple times at a couple conventions, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to work for him. So I thought, I'll just cocktail waitress and I'll tattoo out of my apartment. Well, then I started tattooing out of my apartment, and now people are coming that I don't know into my apartment. And I was like, ugh, I don't like this. So I went and I asked Lou for a job. Well, he didn't have room for me.
It was a busy shop.
He had a few shops.
Yeah. But he was, I mean, there's good tattooers working there.
Yeah. So on the beach, you've got Joe Vegas, you've got Lucky Bastard, you've got Chris Garver. Yeah, I didn't even know who any of those guys were until I started working there. But Troy Lane was taking over the Kendall shop. And so he said, call Troy and see if he's got room for you. So I called Troy, and he didn't really have room for me either. But he only worked until 5 or 6, and the shop was open till 9. So he had a couple days off. So he said that I could use his room. I could come in and work when he wasn't there. So I started doing that.
But this time you've already been tattooing.
Oh, now I've been tattooing for like 17 years.
Longer than a lot of people that worked there.
Yeah. And there was Danny Knight and Mike. I can't remember Mike's last name. There were just 2 other guys that worked there. And it was a very tiny shop. It was 3 rooms and then like a little copier room. Really cool, but tiny. I mean, the waiting room was about as big as this room right here. So I started doing that, and then Troy decided he was going to move to Australia. So he gave Lou back the shop. And so now Lou is in charge of the shop again. And so he came in and I said, hey, I want to work full time and I want Troy's room. And he said, okay, because I thought maybe some juju will rub off, from Troy Lane. Troy Lane was amazing. Rest in peace. But so that's how I ended up getting the full-time job there, because Troy left. Troy eventually came back and then opened AAA Tattooing down back where the original Tattoos by Lou shop was before a hurricane took it out. So then I started working there, and I still didn't know a lot of the guys on the beach because I didn't go to the beach. I grew up in Kendall, and it's where I came back and started tattooing. So I still didn't do much with them yet.
Not a lot of fraternization?
No, not until after Lou passed away.
Which was around?
That was, so I moved back there in 95, 96, 96-ish, 96, I think.
Because he had already passed by the time I went to Florida.
Yeah, I think
First time I went to Florida, he was already gone.
I was only working there for maybe a year.
Wait, I think 96 was the year they had the tattoo convention.
In Miami?
Yeah.
Were you there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was there too. I think he was already gone when you came, right?
So.
Yeah, so I think he passed away in early 96. I don't remember exactly when it was, but so then Now I do know Emerson Forth. So Emerson is working out at the shop with me. And now Ken and Michelle are going to take over. And I had never met Michelle.
Talking about Ken Cameron.
Yes, Ken Cameron and Michelle. And Emerson goes, she doesn't really like girls. I was like, oh, great. I'm going to lose my job. And I had never met her. I think, so my sister started dating Emerson. And then Emerson and Greg were roommates. So somehow it was like, come out. It was my birthday or something. And let's go to the beach, And I had met Greg once. I worked for him on the beach. I worked the beach one weekend for him. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how people work down here. I mean, the shop was open till like 3:00 in the morning. And the crazies that came in.
They were partying though. Those years were party years.
Yeah, but there were also some crazy people too. Not even just people who were partying. There was just crazy people.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, ooh, this is a whole nother world down here. I always worked in shops that were kind of suburban.
Yeah.
I never worked in the city shops.
Miami Beach is wild.
Very wild. So I had met Greg once, just briefly. I was in my car. I had to drop some stuff off. He came out to the alley, grabbed something, whatever, and I ended up working for him. So I didn't really know him or most of the guys down there. So I hooked up with him. We were just actually, no, him and Emerson left. They went to work for Eric Inksmith in Jacksonville before I started, because we were both in relationships. And then Eric Inksmith told Emerson that he was too intimidating, that Greg couldn't work there. And I thought, God, he's like a really nice guy, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I found this out after the fact. And I was like, he's really well and nice to customers. I'm like, where did that come from? Anyway, Emerson said if he couldn't work there, he wasn't. So they came back. Their spots were gone. So Greg ended up working at the shop in Kendall where I was working. And that's how we hooked up. And he told me that it would never work. We could never date and work together.
Yeah.
And
it's
here
a rough
we are.
one.
Here we are, 29. Yeah, but I was older.
Yeah.
He probably dated a lot.
You weren't a dumb young girl
yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I said, I think we can make this work.
I mean, now it's you said 29 years?
29 years. Yeah.
Wild.
Yep. So
did you work with Ken at any point?
No, I never did. So I worked at the beach shop that one time for Greg, and Michelle came in one night for like 2 minutes, and she said, oh, you must be Cindy. Said hi to me, and that was it. Well, her cousin Lisa used to work in the office for Lou. Lisa came to the shop in Kendall one day and just started asking me all kinds of questions, like, how did you get into tattooing since you don't have family into tattooing or whatever? And
a lot of people got into tattooing
through
their family.
Yeah.
There's a lot of families of tattooing.
It was like she was drilling me to find out who I was. And it was for Michelle. I found out later. Michelle wanted to know who I was.
Where'd she come from?
Yeah, where'd she come from? And
who let her in?
Yeah. But we went, they always did stuff for their employees. They would do Christmas parties, brunches. We did an Easter brunch. We all went out the night before. At this point now, Emerson and Greg, and I think Garver might have been living there too, in a warehouse. And I had bought a new dress for this brunch. I was going to impress this lady, but I had to go back to Kendall. But it was Saturday night, and we partied hard. So there was no driving back to Kendall. I just crashed at the warehouse and went to brunch in my Saturday night clothes. I think we were all hungover. And I thought, oh, God, this is going to be it. But we ended up convincing them, because they were going to open the shops after the brunch. We ended up convincing them to let everybody have off and let's do a barbecue at their house. I showed up to her house barefoot in a pair of Greg's boxers and a T-shirt, with a 12-pack of beer in my hand, and we hit it off.
There you go.
And we became really good friends besides her being my boss. And then we built a new Kendall shop, so now we had more rooms, bigger spot. Ken was out there a lot, building the shop and everything. And
I mean, Ken Cameron was probably one of the best tattooers in the country at that point.
Yes.
And I mean, I just in those early years, the 90s, like
And-
Ken Cameron Flash and doing, just everything about. I mean, he was at the top of the game.
Yeah, and he had his own shop on the beach, which was a really killer shop. He had good tattooers
A lot
there.
of great people worked for
Yeah.
him. A lot of great people came through that.
A lot of great tattooers came through that shop too. So then we were in Kendall. Greg moved out to Kendall, moved off the beach, and we moved in together.
Settled down a little bit.
A little bit. Oh yeah. He settled down a lot.
Yeah.
He settled down a lot. He would work all day, and we had a canal behind our apartment. He would fish until it got dark, or I said, "Hey, dinner's ready," and he settled down a lot. But he was kind of in charge of the shop. He would bring the payroll to Michelle every Sunday night. We would go there and we would eat. And then he started diving and fishing a lot with Ken. So they would go on Sundays if he wasn't working, and they would fish or whatever and bring it home, and we would all have dinner together.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I became really close with her kids when they were really little, and I would spend my Sundays down there at the pool and swimming with them, and then the guys would come home and bring the catch of the day. It would be Troy and little Jeff, and because they all did the diving together, and we would grill out in their backyard. It was cool.
What a great time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, a great time in that part of tattooing, that in Miami. And this would still be this would be late 90s by now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We left Miami in 99.
Yeah.
And moved here in 99.
So you came to Ohio because Greg was from Ohio.
Yes. We came here to raise his son, Adam. Yeah. He actually told me, we were on vacation. We had now been dating for 2 years.
He was like, by the way, I got a kid.
Well, no, I knew he had a kid. When I met him, I worked for him because he was coming home for Adam's first birthday. So I knew he had a kid. And then he brought Adam and Adam's mom to Miami. He was going to take them to Disney World. Twice they came down. And I thought, man, I never wanted kids. And I thought, I really like this guy, but he's got a kid. I'm like, what am I going to do? So anyhow, we're dating for 2 years. And he tells me he's moving home to raise this kid, but he doesn't ask me to come with him. And at this point, Dave Wolf was down in Miami as well, working, and they were, really close. And I said to Dave, he broke my heart. He told me he's moving, and I thought he really liked me, but he didn't ask me to go with him. He goes, I think he's afraid to ask you. I think he thinks that you're going to say no. Who wants to move to Cleveland? Well, when I told my mom I was moving to Cleveland, she was like, what for? But anyway, he eventually asked me to come, and I came, and I became what I thought was going to be part-time mom. I became a full-time mom, and we raised his son, and we worked.
You're very motherly anyway, though.
I raised my younger siblings for a few years when I was still living at home. So I knew how to do all that stuff. My mom went back to work, and I became a mom.
And you're kind of the mom here at the shop.
Yeah.
And you're the host with the most at the house.
I try.
I mean, you take care of you.
Try.
Very. Yeah, your home is very well taken care of, and I mean that by you take care of the people while they're in your house. You're very motherly in that sense. Very gracious.
I try to. I want people to feel welcome and make themselves at home, but I also like to
take care of them.
Yeah, I do. I do. Like fold your laundry when it's in the dryer.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so we moved here and went to work at a tattoo shop that was pretty much the shop to get tattooed at, 252, when we moved here. So we already had jobs when we moved. I remember Greg driving me out.
At that point, was Dave Wolf here?
No. So Dave Wolf was in Tennessee when Greg went to Miami. Then when we got to when we opened the new Kendall shop, Greg convinced Dave to move to Miami.
That's the part. I remember this.
Yes. And then we moved here and he convinced Dave to move back to Ohio. So Dave kind of followed him everywhere because he went to Tennessee, got Dave, because I think Dave was living in Colorado and doing ski instructing or working at a ski place. He convinced him to come to Tennessee to tattoo, and then he just convinced him to come everywhere he went. So then Dave came and worked also at 252 with us. And that was the shop. I mean, we would go to, when Greg first took me out there, it was out in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, there's nothing out here. People come out here to get tattooed. Are you sure we're going to make money here? We went to that shop that week, and the guys that worked there, they were good tattooers, but slow and just, took their time or whatever. That's first Saturday I worked there. There was like 15 sheets and people lined up outside before we opened the door, and now inside sitting on the benches. And I was like, man, these guys tattoo really slow. I did like 13 tattoos to their 4. They also didn't get paid enough for their tattoos either. Because I looked at Greg, I go, I cannot tattoo for these prices. And it
wasn't like Miami.
No, they had the prices, but they were good tattooers. They deserved to get paid for their tattoos. So I made the girl who worked the front wipe all the prices off the wall. And for a minute, a few customers were like not happy that the prices were going up, but it was time for the prices to go up at this point in time. The tattooers were good tattooers, and they were doing really nice tattoos, and they were not getting paid for them. They were doing tattoos for 80s prices, and it's $19.99.
Well, there are these pockets around the country that's like especially pre-internet. There was a lot of the common phrase like 10 years behind the times. Like Little Rock, Arkansas. You go to Little Rock, Arkansas in '99, and it was like the 80s. Everything was like the 80s.
Right.
The stores were like the 80s. And the people, the fashion was behind. And it's like tattooing was. If you were a good tattooer, you could show up in one of these towns and be really busy, but the prices were also
that's
lower.
Kind of how I felt like it was here. And that shop was, the area has built up a lot more now, but when we moved here, I felt like it was in the woods. There was a gas station and a bar because it's in a little strip, but there just wasn't much around. It's more kind of country out there. But it was the premier shop. It was busy. And we did really well. But it came to a point in time where I think Dave and Greg just decided that it was time for them to move on and do something on their own. And that's how Tattoo Faction came about. They partnered up and figured out what they wanted to do. But we had to fight. We had to fight to get into the city. We had to hire a lawyer, and we had to fight the city. They didn't want tattooing here. And
20 years ago, a lot of places didn't have tattooing.
Yeah.
Like state of Oklahoma was, totally illegal still.
Right. Yeah. So we got in by one vote.
So it was the first shop in North Olmsted.
It was the first shop in North Olmsted. And then immediately a few other shops opened. A few of them closed not too long after they opened too. So there's only a couple here in this city.
It's not a big city, though.
No,
this is a suburb of.
Suburb of Cleveland. Yeah.
I feel like from your house to here, I cross county lines, like in and out, like.
You do.
Yeah.
You go from Lorain County to Cuyahoga County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's a bunch of small, whatever you call them, cities, I guess.
Yes.
But just on top of each other. Now they're all connected. I'm sure 20 years ago there was like gaps between.
No, well, where we live now, that was all farm.
Pasture, yeah.
Yeah, all farm fields. Yep. So Dave and Greg put their heads together and got this shop going. And when we first opened, and people were waiting because we had clients. We were there for 7 years. And so people were waiting for us to open. It took a while to get the Board of Health,
by this time you've been tattooed 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've got to get all this, city, this, that. You got to get permits for everything. Who knew, So it took a while before we could open our doors, and we opened our doors actually Labor Day weekend. So we just celebrated 19 years. And when we first opened, it was just the four of us, and we were so busy.
And it was half this, right?
No, it was the
the
full
whole thing.
It was the full shop, but it was only these 6 rooms. That was all lobby.
Okay, big lobby.
That was all lobby, big lobby. I was telling Ben Mack when he was here yesterday that we had a big wooden block thing, and we had those flip files out in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Of the lobby, because the lobby was so big, we needed to kind of fill it up with something. So, yeah. So, it was the four of us, and we were so busy. And I would tell Dave, I got to go home. It's only 7 o'clock. I go, I've been here since 10. You didn't get here till 2. You know, we didn't really have hours yet. We just kind of opened and worked until we couldn't work anymore, until we figured out, you know, because there were only 4 of us, we all 4 worked pretty much all day long. We didn't have shifts like we do now, you know. And then Chuck Euler and Mike Hutton, we gradually brought the rest of the guys that were coming with us from 252 over here. And then just graduated to...
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the 20 years. You're going to have a big party.
Oh, we should. We had a 10-year. I'm assuming 20 years is going to be good. The 10-year party was great. Had a lot of tattooers here. We have a big area in the back of the shop, so it's nice. We, you know, park back there. We put a tent back there. Had a taco truck back there. It was great.
Well, you definitely got to go big.
Yeah, we will. We will. We will.
So Greg's a fair amount younger than you, and he's been tattooing.
He's been tattooing 10 years less than me, so he's been tattooing 35 years.
Because me and Greg are both born in 71. We've both been tattooing right around the same amount of time, 35-ish years.
Yeah, 90-something.
Yeah. And the people that are, you know, we are now some of the older tattooers in the groups. It's wild to think about.
Well, it's crazy too, because like I was telling you earlier, I didn't know a lot of tattooers for the first 20 years I tattooed. I knew the people at National, Jack Rudy, Ed Hardy, Carrie Barba, Vivine Lazonga, you know, Pat Sinatra, those people who a lot of people don't even know who those people are. Shotzi Gorman.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know who those people are.
Those are the people that like I went to meet at the first early conventions I went to, you know.
Right. And then I started venturing out a little more with Michelle, because Ken and Michelle traveled a little bit more and did a few more tattoo. And
Ken was very well connected.
Yes.
And he put on the tattoo tour with
Dennis Dwyer, and then you've got JD Crow. So I started doing some other tattoo conventions. I thought, oh, wow, there's like a lot more tattooers out here, you know, learning of different tattooers that I may have read about in a magazine, but I really didn't know who these people were. And then Michelle just started taking me everywhere and introducing me, because that was another thing too. If I went to a convention, I just hung out in the booth. I didn't go up and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Cindy, which is weird because I talk a lot, but I just didn't. In the tattoo world, I always seemed very shy. I felt intimidated, you know, because I was the younger, or I wasn't as artistic, or I thought they were just grand tattooers and I was just mediocre. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't know so many people until really Michelle broke that for me. She started introducing me to so many people. And then once Greg and I got together, we started doing, you know, traveling and doing more things. And and then now, because I call it his generation of tattooing, which is your generation of tattooing, I've met so many people.
What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Legacy Ink, the finest in tattoo pigments. I've been using this ink exclusively for over 20 years myself. It has been recently rebranded and marketed, but it has been the same recipe for decades. Real, hand-mixed tattoo pigments that heal great and last. People always comment on the yellow that I use and the yellow tattooed on me, my favorite, the Mayan yellow. I have seen countless 20-plus-year-old tattoos with the colors still vivid. Don't duck around with all these newfangled companies with their watered down baloney. Get the tried, true, and tested good shit. You can find them on Instagram at Legacy Pigments or email Ashley today to place an order at legacyartsupplies@gmail.com. Tell them Oliver sent you and receive a special discount. Don't just do tattoos. Be part of a legacy. Well, before me and Greg really met and started traveling together, like I traveled a lot, and you knew about these other tattooers that were like the heavy traveling tattooers, and Chad Coplinger and Greg Christian.
Well,
and
Chad started, just so you know, Chad really started his career here at 252.
Yeah.
And I remember when he told me he was going to go to Africa, and I said, by yourself? And he said, yeah. And then he really was the one of all of those group of guys. I mean, he just took off.
Yeah, he's one of the most traveling tattooers ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
It was funny that you said his name, and I remembered, wait a minute. I remembered because there was a whole BMX crew, and one of them came up and asked Greg, hey, do you think he could work at your shop? Which really wasn't Greg's shop, but it was Rodney's shop, but Rodney and James. But Greg did a lot for the shop, you know, helped them like, hey, we should paint, we should do this, we should make the shop better, you know? And so Greg got Chad in there and gave him the opportunity to learn a little bit more. He really wasn't a really good tattooer at that time, because I think he did a tattoo, and I think I said something to Greg, and I by no means am someone to judge people on tattooing, because I just think I'm an average tattooer, but I do the best tattoos that I can do. But I thought, is he a good tattooer? Because those tattoos don't look that good. He goes, I think he's got potential. And he did.
Yeah, he does.
He figured it out.
I mean, he has just a way to interpret things that nobody else comes up with.
Right.
Which is also what Greg has.
Yeah.
You know, a different way to interpret things. Instead of just doing that same tattoo reference over and over, Chad like makes it like you see it, you know it's Chad.
Yeah, he changes it up. And Greg does the same thing. Greg does that with his paintings too. He paints one way for a while, and then all of a sudden he has a new way of painting, a new style. And I actually never even did a watercolor painting until I met Greg. I was always colored pencils. When we had to color flash, I color penciled flash.
Well, the 80s was big color pencil flash. I mean, Eric Inksmith was doing it. I mean, all that stuff, a lot of the stuff you see from the 80s, even the older guys that watercolored in the 60s and the 70s, the 80s came out, they're like, oh, the color pencil's the new thing.
Yeah, well,
you
that's
know, so
what
you see the Owen Jensen stuff that had, and the Burt Grimm stuff, even later Burt Grimm stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what we did. And I think then they tried to get me to watercolor flash, and I was like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I need the colored pencils. I don't know how to do this. And then I think my color palettes were really bad. If I didn't have a picture in front of me to tell me how to color that tattoo, and I had to try to make it up myself, I think what I did with a sheet of flash, I remember Larry coming in and saying, what did you do to this? I think part of it was I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to color the sheet of flash, and he made me do it. And I didn't really know what to do with it because I didn't have anything to look at. So I said, okay, I'll just do what I think looks good. And it just didn't really look good.
Yeah, the first, I mean, in the 90s, the first 5 or 6 sets of flash I did were all color pencil.
Yeah.
That's what the people that were before me were doing.
That's what I was doing. And that's what I was doing when I was doing any kind of drawing in my drawing book. It was all with colored pencil. My first watercolor. Oh.
It's gone.
Nope, she's right there.
Oh, yeah.
Greg said, you're going to sit down and do a painting. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. That was my first watercolor painting, was that nurse right there.
Very cool.
And so I started painting. Then they got heavy into painting. Emerson and Greg and Dave, and they were doing big things. And then they started going, and this was before anybody was doing this stuff. They started making paintings and buying cool old frames and framing them and going to conventions and selling them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Greg, all these guys have a lot of art. that's spread out the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
And so I painted with them. We would lay on the living room floor of the apartment and would paint. I didn't pick it up. I don't do a lot of it now even. I mean, I did a lot during COVID and I sold almost everything. But to my like 12, Greg did 150. He makes it look like coloring. He makes it look so easy. It's just one of the things that I haven't been able to pick up very easily.
I mean, the amount of paintings that he does is incredible.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, not just him, but the people in general. There's this shop in particular has so much original painted stuff and prints, but I tell the story. I come here and I'm doing a tattoo, and we're in the back room. I'm drawing a tattoo, and Greg starts sketching out on a board. I do the tattoo. I get done with the tattoo. He's putting the page of flash in a frame and putting on. Well, he painted the whole page of flash while I did the tattoo.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it takes me days to prepare to make a page of flash.
Me too. He does it very quickly. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from him, and I still do. But I still learn a lot from everybody because there's just newer tattooers all the time, and everybody's got different this or that or whatever going on. And I'm like, wow, that looks pretty cool. Maybe I'll give that a shot. Or how did you do that? Maybe I'll try it.
Well, 20 years in this shop, or almost 20 years, 19 years in this shop, you've had a lot of great tattooers here.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked alongside with a lot of great people. A lot of people have started here and become great tattooers here. There's people that's, like Rob Hamilton.
Oh my gosh.
He's an incredible tattooer.
Yep. He started off as a shop guy.
Yeah. And he started off at nothing and blossomed in this environment.
I know. Yeah.
And that happened. And a lot of people travel and come through here. You were talking earlier about guest artists not being that prevalent back in the day. Now, obviously, this last 20 years, guest artist is a very prominent thing in the industry.
It is.
And you have a shop that's the shop where Mike Wilson goes, or you have the shop where Steve Burnkermson works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that influx really is a benefit for all your coworkers. It's also a benefit for the clientele.
Oh, for sure.
It's cool because I come and work here and I tattoo a tattoo on somebody who has a tattoo from all these other guest artists and all the other people that worked here. And it's just, North Olmsted is now kind of like a major tattoo destination. It
is. We get a lot of people coming through here now, which is great. I love it. I love having different guest artists coming through. And also, too, I think for the guys, it gives them something else to look at because we do have a few guys that don't travel a lot, so they get to check out what this person's doing and how they're doing it. And I think that helps them create some more, images in their mind of, hey, maybe I was watching that guy do this, maybe I could try to do something like that.
Yeah, for Elm Street, having a constant rotation of guest artists from all over the world is like, it keeps it very exciting.
Yeah.
It also breeds an environment of when somebody is guesting at your shop, if you work there and there's a guest artist there, you put your best foot forward because you want to be able to soak up what they have, but you also want to represent yourself and your shop good.
Well,
so
yeah,
it keeps people on their toes.
Right.
And it keeps everybody always on their best behavior. So the more guest artists I can get to come through, everybody's trying to do their best.
Right.
Nobody wants to do a bad tattoo when Steve Burns there. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like,
right.
It's great.
Well, I hit kind of a plateau probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know. It was probably just because it was tattoos I didn't want to do, and I just was bored with it. And then we hired Stephanie. And Stephanie's an amazing artist. And I thought,
and
oh my God.
It sparked something.
Yeah, it did. It sparked, if you don't get your shit together, she's going to take all your clients because I was the only female here. So a lot of people were drawn to me because I was a female. And now there's Stephanie. So I had to step my game up. I had to really take a step back and look at what I was doing and figure out. And I think that's also where the floral thing came into. I if I can do just the stuff that I like to do, I'm going to do it better, and I stepped up my game. I actually had a couple people who have seen some tattoos recently in the last couple years and said, usually tattooers who get older get worse, but I feel like you're getting better. And I said, I don't know that I'm getting better. I'm doing really good tattoos because I still want to work at my shop and I want people to come to me, So I'm doing the best that I can do because I do feel like I was.
Well, I think that happens a lot. It's happened to me probably 10 times in my 35 years of tattooing where you get to the point you're like, this is how good I am. I made it to this point.
Right.
And then you're when you hit that point, you feel good. And you're like, I'm doing good. And then you kind of just coast on that plane. And then somebody else is like, boom. And you're like, oh man, and then all of a sudden if you keep going and you keep staying inspired and you keep learning, I thought when I was tattooing for 10 years, I was like, oh man, when I'm tattooing like 15 or 20 years, like that'll be like, there's not really a ceiling.
No.
And there's all these false ceilings where you get to a point where you just kind of like coast, or you get to this point where you're content. And like Richard told me, is like, as soon as you think you're good, that's the best you're going to be,
Yeah.
And so if you always want to do better, then there's always a chance to do better.
Well, and I feel like for me, now, especially with social media and stuff, I see other tattooers doing things and I'm like, oh, how did they do that? I like that. So I start picking things that I see or watching somebody do something. I'm like, oh, I like that idea too. And I'm trying to use some of this newer stuff that I've never seen before and bring it so I'm trying to kind of be like a newer tattooer, instead of the old Cindy, it's the new Cindy tattooing, trying to bring something different into where I thought I just was like, that this is it. This is all I got, but I said, no, I got more.
Yeah. I mean, you're still trucking.
I'm trying.
You're still trucking. I mean, I kind of had the idea, it's like when you're young and you start getting, you start getting older, you start feeling getting older. You're like, oh man, I don't have much longer to go, but then you just keep going.
But I also am the type of person, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't working. I need to work.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah, I need to work. I need to keep busy. And I like tattooing. I still love tattooing as long as I can do the things that I like to tattoo, and I've gotten to a point where that's what I'm doing. People are coming to me to get floral pieces, whatever. So I'm getting to do what I want to do. So I'm happy working.
That's great.
I also take care of all the shopping and ordering and the payroll and all that stuff. So it does kind of wear me down a little bit. So I don't tattoo 5 days a week anymore. I only tattoo 3 days a week, but that works for me.
But you work almost every day.
Well, yeah, I'm here almost every day.
Yeah.
Doing something.
Somebody's got to do it.
Right. Well, and then I'm usually here on one of my days off too, drawing to get ready for the weekend. Because nobody wants to pick anything off the wall, which I would love someone to just come and pick something off the wall. But
well, you are, like, we're talking about getting known for doing what you do. You do these, very elaborate, big floral pieces that are very obviously custom drawn to fit people's
the areas, right?
And so that's what people are coming to you for. People are coming to you I want it custom drawn to fit my arm or my leg,
right,
or around this tattoo or to cover that tattoo or whatever. Like you're not known to just pick something out of the book that you throw down in front. You know? So that's the curse of getting to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Which is fine. It's fun. I do a lot of research, into what part of the body I've got to do, especially when someone's doing like a full leg, but they just want to kind of curve over the thigh, but then they want to come on the in and come out this way,
Well, the kind of tattooing that me and Greg do, it's just like people come in and they say, I want this. And we say, okay, give me 5 minutes and the stencil's on and you're tattooing.
Yeah.
The kind of tattooing you do, people come in and you spend an hour or 2 hours putting stencils on and drawing it in and
sometimes if I am usually prepared before the person comes in, so I do a lot of consultations.
Well, what I'm saying is that's still hours time
of
that you
time
put
that I have
in.
to put into getting it together and piecing it. And then a lot of times, if I'm like the other day when you were here and I was filling that girl's arm, and I didn't remember how big her arm was, so I didn't have enough, so I had to draw more to fill it in.
Yeah, and you gave her that time to really make it fit and
Right.
all look perfect on her arm.
Yeah.
I mean, I like watching that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't really do that kind of tattooing.
Yeah, but I can't do what you do, though. I can't go in the back room and just someone walks in and say, I want a cardinal, and you just draw it right up, and there it is in like 10 minutes. I can't do that.
That does. A lot of people are surprised, that I am not prepared for the tattoo.
But you don't.
I'm prepared to be prepared.
Yeah, but you don't have to be, because you got it here and they say, okay, I want this, and you just whip your hand out and there it is.
But also on that same note, if they want something that I can't do, then I just say, hey, I got to do something that I can do.
Right.
There's a limit. But the things that I do the way I do them.
Right. And that's I think that's how most of us are, just even watching Greg, these little gap filler things that he's doing now. It's the same thing with Steve Byrne. He does it with the biomech. Greg's doing it with bonsais.
Yeah.
And it's cool. But I don't know and I actually did a little gap filler. I put some flowers in this little area on this girl a couple months back, but I don't really know how to do that stuff.
Yeah, so some people Greg has got the magic of just coming up with something that's unique, turning something simple into his own unique look. A lot of the same way Chad does.
Yeah, they all do. They all have definitely their own style and their own way of figuring out how to make it work in that area.
So as far as like the kind of the waves and the transitions that the shop goes through over the years, you have a lot of people come and go, a lot of artists that work here and a lot of artists that leave and new artists that come. I think, the last couple of years, the crew that you have here now is a very cohesive group. Everybody, this is everybody seems happy to be at work right now.
Yes.
I love coming here, and you've got young people that are starting new here. You've got Greg's son who's fresh. Got Miles who's fresh, and I think having that in the shop, it's like it's still keeping it new and young is pretty incredible.
Yeah,
it's not stale.
Right, and there's a variety of age ranges here, so I think it works really well. I think everybody gets along really well. We don't have that where you go to that job and there's like,
Yeah.
Everybody gets along great. And everybody here is a hard worker. They all work hard. They draw a lot. They paint a lot when they're not tattooing. And they come here to work. They come here to work hard, and they work hard, which I like. They're not lazy,
Well, the environment y'all have created is everybody has their own space. Everybody has enough room, but it's still a community feel. There's a huge back room for drawing and eating and hanging out.
Yep.
Nobody's
on top. Well, you're not
nobody's on top of each other.
Yeah, you're not on top of each other. Everybody has their own room, so it's their own space. But with the open windows and stuff, we can all still talk to each other while we're tattooing, crack jokes, whatever.
We were talking about it yesterday with Ben Mack here. It's like an open street shop with everyone having their own space instead of it being a shared space. And I think that dynamic really lends itself to the less elbow bumping,
Right.
Elm Street, everybody's on top of each other, so tensions get high when it's busy, and it's like you got to walk around people to get to your stuff, and it's just like it gets hectic.
I know, but that shop is really cool, though. I mean,
well, you have to have, like, now we have a great crew, and everybody is dedicated, and everybody works hard, everybody wants to get along, and everybody's happy to be there. But it's just that environment where it is tougher. And yesterday I said, man, me and Ben Mack were walking around, and I was just like, I just brag on how cool this is. And then I'm like, this is the area I'm most jealous about. In the drawing room, in the back room,
Oh,
the big table. and
Bella is very jealous of that back room. When I talked to her about doing the podcast, she's like, "Oh, you should do it in that crazy back room of yours." Yeah, the back room is good. It especially because a lot of these guys do draw their tattoos up day of. So the client comes in and they're going to draw it right before they tattoo him. So you've got sometimes 3 or 4 guys back there drawing
And
together.
there's room to do it.
And there's room to do it. In your back room, there's not room for 3 or 4 guys at one time to draw.
No, you're like 2 people.
Yeah.
And people are waiting. Hey, you done drawing yet? Let me get in there.
Right. No, it's a good thing.
Go ahead.
No, I feel fortunate that I've gotten to come this far and still be able to tattoo and still do good tattoos. And for our shop is a great place and I love it. And I'm really proud of Dave and Greg for what they did. And then for Greg taking over when Dave left, and Dave is in Colorado now doing his thing. But Greg does a lot to keep the shop looking good and keeping up with the artists and what's going on.
Well, I think you do a lot of work to keep the shop going too.
I do.
This is you guys are a great team. And I think that y'all really have your own strengths. Couldn't be done with one without the other.
Oh no, we both need each other, definitely. I think he needs me more than I need him, though.
I mean, me and Greg, we wouldn't know what to do without the people that are helping us.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably speak for both of us. We do what we do, and it's very limited.
But also, his strength in tattooing and drawing and all that stuff inspires me and gives me more ambition and strength to try to do a little bit more. When we did that art project with Steve Byrne and they asked me, I thought, oh, I don't want to paint on your paintings. What if I mess it up?
Oh, that was so cool.
Yeah. So,
well, back up on when you were talking earlier about getting into tattooing, you were talking about how there's not a lot of girls in tattooing. Not a lot of lady tattooers, but then just a little bit ago, you made a comment about how being here and being a woman tattooer, there was a lot of people that specifically wanted to get tattooed by a woman. And then you get another girl working here, and it's like now there's another woman that people are going to want to get tattooed by. In the earlier years, was being a woman in tattooing that desirable where people wanted to get tattooed by a woman, or was it the idea of like, ooh, I don't know if I want to let a girl tattoo me?
So there is a little bit of both of that.
Yeah.
It depended on where you worked. So when I tattooed in Colorado, we were right by the Air Force Base. I had those guys. I was 19 years old. They all wanted to get tattooed by me. And the guys that I worked with.
Well, I did hear that your nickname was Hot Cindy.
Yeah, that was later on. That was when I moved to New York. And I didn't even know about that name until a couple of years ago.
Hot Cindy.
Yeah. And the guys I worked with would get just mad. I mean, on payday, I would have like a whole platoon of guys waiting to get tattooed by me.
I want to get tattooed by Hot Cindy.
Yeah, it wasn't my name back then. But then when I came here and I'm working at 252, a couple guys come in and, we're doing a rotation and I'm up. And this kid's like, oh, no, I don't want to get tattooed by a girl. I want to get tattooed by one of the guys. And actually, one of the guys went out there and told him that I had been tattooing longer than all of them and that he probably should look through my portfolio before he says he doesn't want to get tattooed by a girl.
Yeah.
And I don't remember which tattooer it was that talked to this kid, but now this kid wants to get tattooed by me. Well, I just gave him shit the whole time I was tattooing him because he didn't want to get tattooed by me because I was a girl. And I've had that in quite a few instances in the past, nothing in the last 10 years. Back in the day, yes. I had instances where they only wanted to get tattooed by the girl, or they didn't want the girl at all, or could they talk to a tattooer when I would greet them?
Yeah.
That we still get. Stephanie got it the other day.
Oh.
So we do randomly still get that one, but I got that a lot when I would answer the phone or someone would come in the shop and I would greet them and they would be like, well, can I talk to a tattooer? And I would just look at them I'm like, you are.
Well, my whole tattoo career, I've always worked. There's always been women that worked at the shop. When I worked for Richard Buffy, who was from Florida also, I think she's from Florida originally, but she worked there. She was older and had been tattooing longer than me. And there was some people would come in and specifically want to get tattooed by her. And then other people would ask to not get tattooed by her.
Right.
And I did that exact same scenario. I was just like, she's been tattooing way longer than me.
Yeah.
Like,
you should look at her work.
I'm learning from this girl.
Yeah.
Right. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, whatever. But then nowadays, the last 20 years, I've always had girls working at Elm Street and Lower Green and Heart and Hand. And you do hear some younger girls talk about the trials of being a woman in this industry. And my point of view is like, these girls come in and they have a line waiting for them.
Right.
When they're learning to tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of a benefit. Like, if you don't have a girl tattooer, like, there's people that want to get tattooed by women.
Yes.
And whether that's a woman feeling more comfortable getting tattooed by a woman, or whether it's just somebody who wants that style or wants something,
right. No, I think it's beneficial to have females in the shop because there are a lot of women who are shy around, if they're getting their pelvis done or something like that. They just would prefer a woman.
Yeah.
Or if their husband prefers a woman, would do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's nice to have both women and men in the shop. It just makes for a good.
I mean, I remember hearing, there was like rumors and people would, talk shit on Richard Stell and say he was chauvinistic. Where I was like, Richard always hired women, when I always had, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was crazy.
Yeah. And for a long time, a lot of shops that I worked in, I was the only woman working there.
Well, it wasn't, I just don't think at those early years, I don't think it was really a desirable environment that young girls were attracted to.
Yeah, probably not.
You know what I mean? Like, as a young punk rock kid, I want to be in a tat shop.
But also, too, the shops didn't look like they do now either. They were very dark, like the Broadway shop.
Biker
at
shops.
Peter, yeah, very dark and dingy paneling walls. They weren't bright and
it was a rough environment.
Enticing, yeah. It seemed scary when you walked in. Like, I was kind of intimidated when I walked in to the first tattoo shop, which was Peter's shop on Broadway. I was like, wow. It was kind of biker. I think there was a motorcycle in the corner, like some hot rod thing with flames and whatever, and it was kind of, if you didn't hang around those kind of people, it was intimidating.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say if you took some of the females that are into tattooing right now and they walked into that kind of a tattoo shop, they probably wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Yeah. It definitely was. I mean, it was definitely not an inviting environment.
Well, yeah. And a lot of
other people other than were the dingy people.
There were also a lot of big burly guy tattooers. All the guys that I worked with, I mean, Peter was good looking. He was fit, built, shaved. Most of the guys I worked with had beards, they're big and kind of scary looking,
I mean, we're talking about tattooing, how much tattooing has changed. And a lot of people, especially since the internet, tattooing changed drastically with reference and whatnot. But before that, I mean, even just from when I first got into tattooing, Richard was telling me about how different it was just a few years before I started tattooing. And then I got tattooed by Fidel Castile, the guy who taught Richard to tattoo. And going to his shop was still the old outside of town biker shop in Houston that kind of was, I walked in, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is where Richard learned. This is, it's a crazy place. But like Richard was considered kind of we told you this the other night, he was kind of considered ahead of the game because he was one of the first tattooers that started wearing one glove.
Oh, yes. I remember the one glove.
Because they're tattooing with no gloves. And then he decided to wear one glove on his stretching hand because he was just getting too much blood under his fingernails on the cleaning hand.
Well, I tattooed for 7 years without gloves. And then when I was told to wear gloves, I had a panic attack. I was like, I'm not going to be able to hold my tattoo machine. I won't be able to feel it. How am I going to tattoo with these gloves? And I mean, I literally threw a fit to the point where there was a kid out in the front room who volunteered to be my first client with me wearing gloves.
Because you were worried it wasn't going to work.
I felt like it was too foreign to me.
What do I do with my hands?
Yeah, it just felt like, it just sounded like a horrible thing, even though I would spend days scrubbing black out of my cuticles, trying to get, I used to wear dark fingernail polish because my underneath, it
Be
was
black anyway.
Black anyway. I mean, when I started tattooing, there was no gloves. My rinse glass was a glass.
And you didn't know about Maticide.
No. And we used a straight edge, and I smoked a cigarette while I was tattooing you with no gloves on, with your blood on my hand. It's just how it was. But yeah, and I tattooed that kid with gloves, and I was like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
And nowadays you go back, and nowadays with all the information we have about cross-contamination,
right,
you think about the idea of the gloves is it's for safety, of course. It's cleanliness and safety, but
right.
you forget about the fact that it's like now as a tattooer, like you put on rubber gloves when you're going to change the oil on your motorcycle or something because you're going to get
stuff
dirty.
all over your hands.
It's
well, what about the people who eat barbecue with rubber gloves on now?
I know a lot of people that do that.
I've never seen that until recently. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think Chad, first person I saw put on rubber gloves to eat fried chicken.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, keep my hands clean.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's the barbecue thing I heard about just in the last year or two. I was like, oh, I never knew that.
But and you were wearing these gloves, and it was before there was when you started wearing gloves, it was advised, it was required, it was mandated, it was what was it just?
It was
just an evolution.
No, it was right when AIDS came out. It was mandatory.
But got mandatory by who? Was there a licensing health department or?
I believe it. I feel like it came from the health department, and it was when I was in New York. Colorado might have been different because you could tattoo a 14-year-old in Colorado.
Yeah.
You couldn't tattoo anybody under 18 in New York. And I don't think you still can. I was told by Larry that we had to start wearing gloves. So I'm assuming that he was told by somebody that we had to wear gloves, or he wouldn't have.
I mean, it might have just been National Tattoo recommending that it was this is safety.
I'll be honest, I don't know where it came from except from his mouth to me. And I was told if I worked there, I had to wear gloves.
Well, I remember when I first started tattooing, there was a licensing for the shop, but it was very loose and there wasn't a lot of regulations. And there was a lot of places around the country that didn't have health department enforcement. You had a shop, you had a business license, but you didn't have a health license. And then over the years, different states started implementing different regulations and you started getting inspected by the health department. And, now there's they come in and they inspect, the dates on your tubes and the expiration on the inks and all the things that they inspect.
Oh, they make you go through our health department makes you go through the whole setup and breakdown. What do you do to set up? What do you do to break down? They come in here twice a year.
And you got to have all the proper chemicals to clean the Maticide, the opticides, all the stuff. But that was every year or so there was a new thing the health department's doing. Because even when I started, we were wearing gloves, but we weren't covering our bottles.
Right.
We didn't have a bottle bag. You didn't have a clipboard cover. You
Right.
didn't have this. You didn't have that. You didn't have dates on your
Yeah,
sterile.
there was always something new coming out.
Yeah, your needles didn't have a date on them when you sterilized them. They were just the little thing would turn blue when you sterilized it.
You put a little thing in there because we didn't even have individual packaging.
Oh,
when
yeah.
I first started tattooing, our needles just went on a tray and we scrubbed them, cleaned them, put them on the tray, sterilized them, and used them again.
One of the things that a lot of younger people I talk to, they're blown away by the idea that we reuse needles, and that was very common.
It was,
For you would clean them
yeah.
and sterilize them and reuse them, just like you would use the razor, clean the razor. Sometimes.
Well, yeah, the straight edge. I mean, I just probably wiped it off with alcohol. I didn't have Maticide.
We had Barbicide, like at the barber. You soak it in the thing.
Oh, I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure all I had was green soap and alcohol. I don't think I had anything else when I first started tattooing.
Green soap. The smell of green soap.
Yeah, everybody loves the smell of green soap.
It's funny because it's a medical soap, but you never hear about it being. You don't associate that with the doctor at all.
No, tattooing is.
I think the only thing that's kept green soap in business is tattooing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I kind of remember maybe a few years into tattooing when the sterile bags came out, but we would still put like a whole bunch of needles inside of it, not just one. And then we'd open the package and we would just pull them out as we needed them to use them. It wasn't like you were getting a brand new opened package every time you did a tattoo.
But then I feel like it's sometime in the late 90s, it became a thing where the customer wanted to see their needle opened. You remember this? It was a nationwide.
It was when I was working in New York, because I would usually set up before they came in my room.
And hey, I want to. Is that a new needle? I just took. No, I want a new needle. Yep. And they would you take re-break down your machine, say take a new needle, open it, and put it in, and they would be satisfied. And then I'd be like, hey, but you know that I'm the one that put it in this package.
Yeah.
It's not like this is packaged from
a company.
From some governing official that's guaranteed it's safe. I'm the one that put it in this package. I'm just reopening. The one I just took out of there, I'm going to put back in a new package and give it to somebody else. So it's like, I understand, but it was, people got spooked.
Yeah.
And there's people talk about right now, tattooing get busy and then it gets slow, and there's busy times and slow times. And for me, tattooing used to be way more seasonal. Like it was way busier in
the summer
and dead in the winter.
People have no clue what slow is. I sat for 13 hours a day, an entire week, and did one tattoo in Colorado because there was 8 feet of snow outside.
Oh, man. Well, I remember multiple times where there would be, some kind of scare on a news show that there was that it was unsafe to get tattooed, and then it would be slower for a while.
I've been tattooing for 45 years. I've gone through really slow, really busy, and then slows down. I mean, it's always in my mind gonna go up and down. It's a seasonal thing. It's what's going on in the world. How's the economy?
What's cool, what's trendy, what generation,
But then you also have those people sitting in your chair going, I just got laid off, but they're spending $400 on a tattoo. And I'm like, you just got laid off? I'm like, okay. But it makes them feel good. We are in a make you feel good business.
Yeah.
Getting tattooed makes people feel good. So if they're depressed or they just lost their job or whatever, and they don't have the money, they're going to find the money to get a tattoo.
And then there's the obsessive addicted collectors.
Oh, those too, yeah.
That are just...
And there's new generations. This is what, I tried to explain to these guys. We all got so used to the COVID money that for the last 3 years, we've been so busy that this year when it finally slowed down, right when it normally does, when school starts, I'm like, this is
end of the world.
Yeah, I'm like, this is normal. I'm like, you guys got to remember that this is normal, And one time I had to get a part-time job when I was tattooing, and that's not because of the way tattooing was going. It was because of how I spent my money. I didn't do it right. And it was when I first moved to New York, and I bought a new car and I got a new place, and summer was great. And I spent all my money. I went to the Hamptons. I went here. I went there. And then winter came. Winter came. And I was like, oh, geez, how am I going to pay my bills? So I had to get a part-time job. I worked at the deli that I used to go to every morning on the way to the shop. I was like, hey, can you give me a job for a little bit? But I tell them there's always a new generation of tattooers and people getting tattooed. it's like a thing. It just keeps, going like this. And it's always going to be here. It's always going to be good. Yes. Is it oversaturated in some states or some cities or whatever? It is. But I feel like the tattoo shops that don't have good tattooers or don't also good bedside manner, you're not you're not nice to your customer. They don't like that.
Yeah.
They're going to go somewhere else.
Service industry. You were a service industry person.
Yeah, they're going to go to the shop where the people treat them good right when they walk in the door. They, ask them if they need help. I've had people come in here and say they walked into a shop and we're in there for like 10 minutes and nobody said a word to them.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you do that?
It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know.
At this point, do you find let's say this last couple of years maybe, do you see your clientele being majority in any specific age group? Are you tattooing more older people, or is it all across the range?
I tend to tattoo a lot more older people. I don't know if it's because I'm older, but I would prefer to tattoo some younger people. I mean, I do tattoo a lot of younger people too, but I feel like I am a magnet to older women. I do tattoo some older men, but a lot of older women. And as we age, our skin is just not that fun to tattoo.
But they feel like you understand that.
Yeah, they must. I don't know. And I have to, for some of them, I have to explain, hey, I know you really wanted to put it here, but your skin is really sun and bad. If we put it here where it's a little bit better, and I try to explain to them what happens when our skin gets older. It just doesn't tattoo as nicely.
But coming from you, they probably take it with a little more
a grain of
they probably believe you a little more.
Well, yeah.
Like if it's some young kid saying, rah, rah, rah,
oh
rah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, and I always say we because I am in their age group. So I say our skin or we. I always include myself in that when I'm talking to them, so that they don't feel like I'm just saying their skin sucks, because my skin sucks too.
Well, I'm tattooing so many older people, like a big, not like bad, not in a bad way, but
right.
Just like I'm in my 50s, 54, and I'm tattooing a lot of people that are older than me, and it's very interesting, like that, because typically, I think that my generation, my age group right now, most people weren't. I was in the minority of heavily tattooed people
right.
of my age.
Same.
So these people that are my same age are now just starting to get tattooed.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say.
And
they didn't get tattooed when you started getting tattooed. And now I don't know why, because they're older, they say, oh, I'm going to get a tattoo now.
Well, now most people tell me it's like, oh man, now I'm like, I either own my own business or I'm far enough along in my career that nobody cares what I do.
Right.
My kids are out of college. My kids moved out away from home. I can do whatever I want. It's like a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, those are a lot of the reasons that I hear too.
And the people now that they've made it to this point where they're 40 or 50 or whatever, and they're settled and they own a home, they can afford it. A lot of people
right.
were in college and then trying to work their way up in their cair. They didn't have time or couldn't afford
raising
it.
Kids, doing everything that costs money. I also feel too that, and I could be wrong. I don't know what it is, but you see a lot of people now in places working that you would never see tattoos or piercings, like the bank.
Oh yeah.
I go to the bank I go to, the girl's face is tattooed. You never, ever would see that. And I feel
you could not, we literally called in the 90s, the forearm tat. Forearm, not neck, not hand, not face. The forearm tat was called the job stopper. Like literally,
right.
If you had a tat here,
because
it was a job stopper.
Yeah.
It was like, they're not going to hire you.
But I'm saying now, I feel like you're seeing that so much now because those are the only people that want to work.
Now the face tattoo is not even a job stopper.
I know, but I also feel like those are the only people that want to work because they can't find people to work. That the tattoos and piercings don't matter anymore.
Well, they never mattered.
They did to companies.
I know, but
even the grocery store. A girl who used to work at the grocery store, and this is going back when we first moved here, so you're talking like early 2000s, had a Band-Aid over her piercing every day when I went into the grocery store.
And you're like, did you hurt yourself every day?
No, she told me that she wasn't allowed to show it. Now, everybody at the grocery store is tattooed because I tattooed a full sleeve on a girl who works at a grocery store, and I get so many clients from her because she refers them to me, and they see her tattoo at the grocery store.
You know, one of the first major corporation franchise chain stores that I know of that allowed people to have showing tattoos was Urban Outfitters.
Really? Oh yeah, because I guess
so. It was like a hip store, and all the young hip people worked there, and they all had tattoos. And I tattooed a bunch of people that worked at Urban Outfitters, and like you said, I got so much business because they interacted with so many people coming in Urban Outfitters, and so many young people shop there. Oh, who did your tattoo? I mean, and so I used to tell people, I was like, hey, go offer a bunch of people at Urban Outfitters free tattoos, and you'll be busy for years.
Yeah.
So that was like my business plan to go wherever you lived in the country. It's like, just tattoo the kids at Urban Outfitters, and you'll be busy.
Because their tattoos showed.
And they talk to so many young people every day.
Right.
And they're working at the cool store. They seem like the cool person. They got a cool tattoo. I want to be like that guy. Yeah. Where'd you get your tattoo? Yep. So Urban Outfitters kept me busy for a decade.
That's great.
And I had friends, one of my main buddies, who went around the country setting up Urban Outfitters.
Okay.
He'd be like, I'm putting a store in Vegas. And so I would go to Vegas and work for like 2 weeks and just tattoo all the Urban Outfitters people. And then he's like, I'm setting up a store in Santa Barbara. I was like, go out to Santa Barbara and tattoo all these people. Yeah, it was wild. Urban Outfitters really opened the door to make it okay to work retail and work customer service with tattoos. Because before that, you were forced to wear long sleeves or put a Band-Aid over your piercing or, you know.
Yeah, well,
And now the bank, you can have a face tat.
I know. The bank is where it shocked me the most because I never saw tattoos in the bank. You never saw anybody showing their tattoos. I remember even back in Colorado when I was a newer tattooer, Peter sleeved out a couple police officers.
But they
had to wear long sleeves. They couldn't show their tattoos. You just see it so much more now. And in especially to me, in the last couple years, I feel like a lot of people don't work.
Yeah.
You know, people still have a hard time having employees. And I feel like all the people that want to work are all the people that they wouldn't let work there before because they had a face tattoo or whatever. Now, they want to work.
Yeah, my bank story is the guys at the bank in the nice neighborhood. They basically wearing like shirts and ties or suits, but they're wearing like at least like shirts and ties. But I go in there and I'm talking to them like, they're like, oh yeah, you know, I got tattoos, and they unbutton they roll their sleeve up to show me that they're sleeved. You know what I mean? And so it's like, they're wearing nice clothes because it's a fancy neighborhood where the bank is, but they still want to like, hey, check me out.
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
Yeah.
I'm cool. I got tattoos under the sleeve here. No, but my bank now, there's like 3 women there that are heavily tattooed, and they're just, I mean, they still dress in whatever they have to wear to work, but the one lady's got tattoo, but this girl has tattoos on her face. I was like, whoa, okay.
We've made it.
Yeah.
We made it all the way. That's great. I think that holds that stigma of thinking that tattooed people are bad is definitely pretty much gone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember being pretty heavily tattooed and going to the beach. And you didn't see, and people would just stare at me. And my friend, she didn't like it.
People would move away.
She was a New York girl. And she hated when people stared at me. I finally got used to it. I said, just ignore them. I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? And she hated it. She would say things to them. What are you looking at? You know?
Well, that's why you got the tattoos, so people could look at them.
Yeah. And I remember this guy broke up with me. Someone told me that he broke up with me because he wanted to walk into a room that with a woman on his arm that people stared at. I go, people stare at me all the time. What is he talking about?
They're the bad stares.
No, but you didn't see that. Now everywhere you go, I mean, so many people are heavily tattooed. But I just remember, and I wasn't as heavily tattooed as they am, but I had one leg and one arm and some stuff started on my back. I was considered heavily tattooed.
Well, I hear another little topic is that I hear that, people say that like one generation goes the extreme one way, so the next generation goes the opposite way. So it's like my parents smoked, so I didn't smoke. You know what I mean? That kind of scenario.
My parents didn't smoke and I smoked.
So
all right, I didn't know that.
A lot of people are like, oh, all this generation of heavily tattooed people, the next generation is going to revolt and not be tattooed. And I've heard that like 10 years, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people say that, but then each new generation keeps getting tattooed. Do you think there's going to be now that every heavily tattooed person is having so many kids, you think their kids are going to be like, oh, I don't care about tattoos. My dad had tattoos. I'm not into it.
I think some might be like, but my sister would grossed out when I came home and I was changing and she saw me all tattooed. She goes, that's gross. And she's getting a sleeve from Rubendall right now. I think they might be the kids who don't get tattooed while they're in college. They might wait till they're 40 or 50.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't think tattooing is ever going away. I always feel like there's
it's not going to go away forever, but there is.
No, but I feel, I feel like there's always that
up and down,
up and downs. I've felt that in my whole entire career. I just learned after that first time I had to get a part-time job how to save my money.
That's the main thing I've told people in this last couple of years, the younger people. I'm like, this is not the first time that we've been slow.
No.
And we're still doing fine.
But people freak out.
Well, when you've only been tattooing 4 years.
Yeah.
And 3 years, you were like living the dream. And then now you're like, oh, I shouldn't have bought that new car. I shouldn't have bought, because a lot of people bought.
Well, I just tell people, get a part-time job.
A lot of people bought new cars in 2022 and 2023. And they're like, oh, yeah, I can afford an $800 payment on this.
Right.
Huge $90,000 truck.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yep.
I bought a used. I paid cash for a used truck.
Well, I just figured out how to, after that first year that I did that, because now I was single. When I first started tattooing, I had a partner, so we shared the bills. And now, I was single. I bought a IROC Camaro.
What year was that?
That was 86.
Oh, you were hot
86.
Cindy.
Yeah, 86 or 87.
Hot Cindy in an IROC Z in 1987.
It was bright yellow, too.
Oh, my God. I was in high school in 87. I remember the IROC Z, dude.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. It's like.
And then I moved in, got a place, and then now it's winter, but I figured out after that how to save my money. And so if you can figure that out when it's slow, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know how it is. People want to live it up.
I know.
High on the hog.
Yeah.
Burn it to the ground. Well, man, I'm pretty excited for the 20 year. Everybody keep an order out for the 20-year anniversary tattoo faction party next year. It's going to be a blowout. I'm already promoting it. It's going to be great.
Listen, Adam and Miles are already planning it, so.
Well, I hope they get a big budget, because I think it's going to be a blowout.
I'd like it to be 10-year was really good, so I'd like it to be similar or better.
Yeah. Well, you got to be better.
Yeah, better. Yeah, better at 20, right?
Well, you're nowhere near the end. Well, you might be nearer the end, but you're not near the end. You still got.
Well, people always. I have clients asking me, so like, when do tattooers retire? I go, they don't retire. They tattoo till they can't tattoo anymore.
Yeah.
I go, some of them should probably not tattoo anymore, but if people are getting tattooed by them,
yeah.
I said I'm going to tattoo until I start doing really bad tattoos. Then I'll stop. I'm going to tattoo until.
Well, you're doing great tattoos now, so
I'm trying.
Well, thank you so much for letting me come set up in your wonderful station.
Yay! Thanks for having me.
And what's the next year got for you travel wise?
Oof, I don't have. I mean,
loose plans to go to Japan.
Loose plans to go to Japan. Yes, we just have to get on board with that.
I'm going to give you, you're just going to have to book it. Don't wait for Greg to make the plan.
I can't. He has to do the bookings. He's very particular about what plane he flies on.
He's going, but you need to just put it in the calendar then.
Okay.
Because he's going to procrastinate.
Yeah. We're going. We're going for sure.
Yeah. Got to get over there.
It's the one thing that we need to do. Other than that, just here and there, conventions, whatever's happening, party at the Pens, you know, prison tats.
Well, shout out to that. We just last weekend, which by the time you hear this, it'll be more than last weekend, but we were at Boise, Ohio.
Boise, Idaho.
Oh, did I say Ohio?
Yeah.
Boise, Idaho, which is far from Ohio. It's 2,000-mile drive, which I drove. But yeah, party at the Pen, tattooing inside the prison, a lot of fun. Greg and Cindy were there along with a handful of other tattooers. Super cool, the tattoo in that Maxim security wing. And it didn't get too hot.
No, it was actually a cooler weekend than you guys have said it's been. It was my first time.
But such a cool event. And there is a party at the Pen East also, which is going to happen again next year in Mansfield, Ohio. And I think Cindy will be tattooing at that one this time.
I will. I'll be there this year.
And it's at the Shawshank Prison, and it's a great event. Chopper show, swap meet, car show, tattooing, all party. I mean, it's just a great weekend right down the street from here. So
yeah, not too far.
Yeah, it's going to be killer. And we did party at the Pen last year in Idaho, and Greg called you after it was over. It's like, Cindy, you got to come. This thing, you would love this thing. And so I'm like, okay, Cindy's in. So when
you said,
and Greg's like, what? Now me and Cindy got to go again. I was like, you're the one that said. I didn't say that.
Yeah, and he did. He called me. He actually does that a lot, and I don't think he remembers when he does that. When I'm not somewhere, he's like, you should be here. This is so cool.
You would love it.
Yeah.
I remember him specifically saying, you would love this event. So
I did.
Like, yeah, it was
I had
great.
a blast. I had fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, thanks to Bella for making it run so smooth.
She's good.
We love Bella.
She's good.
Well, anything else you want to tell anybody before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm good.
Well, thank you so much. You are, you're an inspiration to a lot of people, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And there's not a lot of people that are still tattooing that have been tattooing as long as you have, and to stay in it and stay dedicated and love it is something really special. And I appreciate you for that.
Well, I have to thank my clients for that. They still keep coming. So as long as they're here, I'm going to tattoo them.
Hell yeah. Well, come to Tattoo Faction and get tattooed by Cindy.
Awesome. Thank
Later,
you.
Guys. Hey, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Come on, guys. Click all those links. Push all those buttons because it really helps us out and gets us out there to more and more peeps. What in the Duck podcast is produced by Audra Cabral and John.com Niederkorn. Our sound, video engineer, and editor is Courtney Jr. Larkins. Initial audio video setup and intro music by Blake Balake Pinchon. And a big thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Y'all keep them coming. Email me any questions you would like me to answer to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on What in the Duck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Anchor Screen Printing. Anchor Screen Printing has been printing t-shirts and merch products since 1999. Anchor is the place for quality, small run items. At Anchor, every print is hand done by people who care about art. You can email anchorcustoms@gmail.com to talk about getting something printed for your company, brand, or shop. Anchor Screen Printing also has its own online merch store that sells Elm Street Tattoo, Cheap Thrills, Heart and Hand, Party First Safety Made Me merch, and much more. So go to anchorscreenprinting.com today and buy some cool shit. Or you can click the link provided in this podcast to shop now.